are a shero. You are a shero. Did you know that your life is a guiding light, helping many precious souls to fulfill their dreams in the midst of the darkness? You shine so brightly. Did you know that you lead the way to renewed hope from the prisons of despair and sorrow? You are a hero.
Hey. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Just Rashatta Podcast show. I'm your host, Rashatta, and you see me alone today. And I'm alone today because I wanted to just talk to you one-on-one with no one else and really just kind of share my testimony concerning my last birthing experience with my fourth son, well, my fourth child, who is a son, Jeremiah. And the reason why I wanted to share this story in particular is because, one, it saved my life. And two, because, well, it saved my life, but it's about how the Lord saved my life through this birthing experience. And two, it also, I believe, speaks to where a lot of people are. You've been asking and praying to God to do something in your life, to come through in certain areas and in a certain way. And you're looking for God to move in a certain way to answer this prayer or answer what you have on your heart and you need for Him to do. And because it is not happening in the way that you believe it should happen, you become discouraged. It actually took God doing the opposite of what you asked Him to do in order for Him to fulfill the breakthrough that you needed in whatever it is that you were asking Him for. And so I'm going to explain a little bit, and you will be able to see when I go through this testimony. Just for some backdrop, probably like around 2018, 2019, we began to read through the book of Jasher and the book of Enoch in our Bible studies to kind of line it up with the Word of God and in Scripture. And during that time, I realized once we got to the flood incident with Noah and how God flooded the earth, and in reading in those books and reading the account in the Bible, alongside with the added historical information that you find in the book of Jasher and in the book of Enoch, you find that the world, of course, was just absolute crazy. But one of the things that they were doing was utilizing birth control for selfish reasons. The women wanted to keep their figures, and the men wanted them to keep their figures and not get, we get plump. Some of us, we don't bounce right back after having a baby. I still got my baby weight from having two babies back to back. And so you're not thin, you're not, like you were before. And so the women would utilize birth control even back then, potions that some of the fallen angels had showed them how to utilize to keep their bodies. And it was for selfish reasons. And that was one of the things that really stood out to me, is that was a part of what God saw as evil. And when you do a little bit more research and reading the Word of God and really understanding how important legacy is to God, the man's legacy in particular, each man has a legacy that he carries on, his family's name. And so children especially male children, are a part of that man's legacy carrying on. And so, if the legacy stops with a daughter, it was kind of like, that man's legacy ended early because he didn't have any sons to carry on his name. And a family's name back in the day was very important because it said who you were, who your people were, what you were all about, and whether you were a people of integrity, whether you were a people of evil doing. All of that stuff carried in the name. We've gotten away from that, in our society in this day and time, at least in America. I know a lot of other countries, names still really do matter. Surnames still really do matter. And then for even the African Americans here, because we don't know exactly where our ancestry, how far our ancestry goes back, because a lot of us were given slave names opposed to our actual ancestry names. We find it hard to be able to like piece together our legacy. But all in the same, God was not pleased with the use of contraceptive, and not and if for a selfish reason, for reasons that were vain. And there are a lot of reasons why women have to use contraceptives. I have one now again, for medical reasons. Some women have to do that. Some, it's a lot of different reasons why. But when you're married, the underlining is when you're married, you have children to carry on your husband's legacy and his name. And so when I read that and God revealed that to me, I wanted to make sure that I was honoring God. I didn't necessarily get the contraceptive because of I wanted to keep my shape or anything like that. I just had a plan in mind. I had a plan for my life, and having children, being done with having children by the age of 30 was a part of my plan, and that's just all it was to it, because my husband and I were going to focus on ministry. We were, by that time, by 30, children are finished. We're going to grow them up into the Lord. We're going to continue to focus on ministry. That was the plan. Focus on more entrepreneurial things and things of that nature. Then in 2019, I want to say the end of 2019 going into 2020, was it? No, the end of 2020 going into 2021. Yeah. The end of 2020, the Lord, he kind of like arrested me and said, you trust me with everything, because I really do, except for this particular thing. And I was like, what you mean, Lord? Like, I trust you with everything. And he was like, yeah, but you don't trust me enough to allow me to have my will done in your life as it pertains to, whether or not you get pregnant. And I was like, wow, I don't, I wanted to have control over that aspect. I had taken control. I didn't even, really talk to the Lord about it. I just took control of that aspect of, my life, and decided, no more children, because I had this plan for my life. And when, God asked me, do you trust me with every aspect? I started remembering and recalling how the Lord would open and close the wombs of the women of the Bible. When you look and read about the different accounts, especially in the Old Testament, how the Lord closed up one woman's womb for a time, and then he opened it back up so that she could have a child, starting with, Sarah and Abraham all the way through. And it was just like, wow, okay, the Lord has the ability to open and close my womb. So I am going to trust him. I'm going to trust him with my womb. and everything that comes along with it. And so I took my IUD out in February of 2021. And by June of 2021, I was pregnant with my beautiful snack-sized son, Josiah. And I'll tell you about that whole birthing experience some other time, because it's definitely another testimony. But I want to focus in on Jeremiah's testimony. So, got pregnant with Josiah, had Josiah in January of 2022, on January 28th. And by December of 2022, I was pregnant again with Jeremiah. That pregnancy was pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I was thinking that I was going to have a pretty smooth sailing. We had hiccups with Josiah. I had gestational hypertension, which means that the hormones that's released into your body when you're pregnant cause my blood pressure to increase. Your blood pressure already increases when you are pregnant, but mine increased a lot. I was in stroke levels. Without medication, I would be in stroke levels the entire time of my pregnancy. And so I had to take medicine to keep my blood pressure levels at a decent spot. And right when my blood pressure was coming back to normal again, I got pregnant again. And so with Jeremiah's, I had great doctors this time around. They were very proactive, and whereas with Josiah, my blood pressure stayed not in the stroke level, but it stayed pretty high because they didn't adjust the medication. They immediately adjusted the medication for me. As soon as I started to get into those high levels, this team did not play. They sent me right to the hospital to find out what needed to be done, when it needed to be done. I was in the hospital for like 3 days of them trying to figure out when I needed to take the meds, how much, all of that. They were on it. And my blood pressure was perfect throughout the entire pregnancy. With Josiah, because my blood pressure was so high, his growth rate was stunted, which is why I call him snack size, because he's little. He was 4 pounds and 10 ounces when he was born, but he was strong and a ball of fire. And Jeremiah was only a pound larger than him, but again, he was still strong. And so, you know, I'm pregnant with him, and everything is going great. No hiccups. I'm not having any problems. I'm able to just, go to my regular checkups when they're supposed to be, once a month, and then, when it got closer. So we're praying for a natural birth yet again, because that's what I've had. The first 3 pregnancies. We got to a point with Josiah where they thought they may have to have a C-section, but we pushed through, and I had a natural birth with him. And here we are with child number 4. I'm praying to ask the Lord for a healthy delivery, for him to come through and allow me to have a natural birth again, and that I'm healthy and baby is healthy. And we're constantly praying all these things. My husband and I were praying every morning together with our son and everything. And we're believing God, and we get to Sunday morning. I started having contractions on a Thursday. And I was like, okay, small contractions, they're not really doing anything. Saturday, by the time we get to Saturday, they were seeming to come pretty regularly, so I started to track them. on Saturday, and what was happening was I was having contractions regularly throughout the day, and then they would stop at night, which was quite unusual. And so Sunday rolls around and I'm having contractions. I wake up and contractions are coming. And again, we're at a regular pace. They seem to be about 20 minutes apart. So that's high alert stage at that point, bags packed, making sure everything is, ready to go. And I took my afternoon meds for my blood pressure because something said, check your blood pressure, make sure everything is good. And I checked my blood pressure, it was high. And I was like, okay, let me just, it's close to the time to take my medication. I'm going to take my medication, and I'm going to wait an hour after my medication, then I'm going to check it again. After taking the medication, I waited an hour. I checked it again. It was higher. And I double checked it. It was still high. And I was like, it's time to go to the hospital, because even though the contractions are coming and they were feeling they weren't strong contractions, so I was like, they're not strong contractions, but even though they're not strong contractions and they're still like 25 minutes apart, my blood pressure is high. Let's go to the hospital because the medicine is not bringing it down. So that's concerning to me. And if you know me, I'm not easily concerned and ready to go to the doctor at all. I'm not trying to go to the hospital if I don't need to. So we make it to the hospital, and once they get me into one of the emergency rooms, we get checked in, they get me into the emergency room, and they check my blood pressure again. It's high. And they put me on all the machines and everything they find the baby's heartbeat. And you can see on the monitor that I am having contractions, but they're not strong. I'm barely having them, but they're coming up on the machine. And so probably about 2 hours later, they come back to check my blood pressure. They didn't even give me medicine. They came back to check. This time it's the doctor. She comes and checks my blood pressure. My blood pressure is perfectly fine. It's okay. And so she's like, well, you're here. You're going to be induced next Friday anyway. Let's just do it today. Let's just go ahead and admit you. You're at 38 weeks. Everything's fine. I was like, okay, cool. I figured that was going to happen. And so they finally get me into my room at about 11 o'clock in the delivery ward and everything. So I get in there, get settled, and they said, we're going to insert a balloon to kind of help the contractions along before we put you on the Pitocin drip, which is what they use to induce you. And I said, okay, that's fine. And so around midnight, they came back and did the procedure with the balloon. And that's just to help me dilate a little bit faster while I'm having contractions. But the contractions stopped because they were stopping overnight. And so by 12 o'clock, the contractions had stopped. So they went ahead and put the balloon in there. Like, we're going to go ahead and put you on a Pitocin drip. And as soon as they started the Pitocin drip and inflated the balloon, my water broke. Now, that's where things got a little tricky, because once your water breaks, you're on a time limit of when you can, vaginally have the baby from a natural birth, because if the baby doesn't come on its own after a certain amount of time, they have to go ahead and do a C-section, because the baby can't stay in there that long, and you run the risk of being getting a bacterial infection for you and the baby. So now it's like, okay, now the clock is ticking, because now my life or the baby's life could be in danger of, getting an infection or something because the water's already broken and I'm nowhere near time or, dilated to have this baby naturally. So that's an issue. So the doctor was like, it's okay. We're going to put you on the Pitocin drip. About 4 o'clock in the morning, they come rushing into the room and they're like, turn over, turn over, turn over. And they couldn't see the baby's heartbeat on the monitor, on their monitor. And so they're looking for it. They're trying to get the monitor on my stomach to find his heartbeat. He had moved himself up higher. And so we were like, okay, he's fine. And so they're like, well, maybe we can, utilize the wand so that we don't have to, run the scare of being able to listen to him. And during his particular pregnancy, my legs, it almost felt like my legs were disjointed. So moving from side to side was horribly painful. So they were telling me to move fast and I couldn't move fast. And so every move to try and utilize my hip muscles, and all of that, it felt like my hips were coming apart, if you will, and the leg bones were actually pulling apart from my hips. It's very painful. And so here I am trying to turn over. They're fussing at me because I'm not moving fast. I'm like, I can't move fast. And so I'm there and they finally find him. They try to use the wand. That doesn't work because he's moved up higher. And now in my head, I'm like, oh my goodness, I hope this baby didn't turn and now I'm going to have a C-section. So we keep having these little hiccups throughout the rest of the day until we get to about the afternoon time. And I decide to try, well, they come in because, and take me off the drip because baby is responding kind of weird to the contractions that I'm having on the Pitocin drip. And they said, let's take a break. Let's take you off the drip. Let's get you something to eat and see if, baby's heart rate stays steady. And then if he stays okay, then we'll put you back on the drip so we can induce again. In the meantime, they also wanted to give me an oral medication to put under my tongue to help with the induction of labor as well. And my husband looked up what the medicine was and he told me to look it up and he let me read the side effects. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to take that. And so my advocate, she was away with dealing with her son having surgery during that time. So my husband was my advocate and, he said, listen, it's not that we don't trust you all's judgment or anything like that. I just don't have a good feeling. I really believe the Lord is telling us not to go with the oral induction. Is there something else that we can give her? Because I'm not comfortable with the side effects that I'm reading. She's not comfortable with the side effects. And that's just a summary of what he said. And the doctor said, oh, you believe the Lord is telling you that? Well, I'm a Christian too. So, okay, we'll figure something else out. Blessing number one, a Christian doctor. So she said, okay, Dad, of course, we'll do the insertion where if she has started having any side effects or any, allergic reactions, we'll be able to take it out and, everything. And we can, treat her from that point. And so he said, okay. So while she was out going to get that prescription fulfilled, I said, well, let me, get out of bed, try to get on the ball, try to, get up and move around a little bit since we have some time. Soon as I got out of the bed, this chill just it is almost like it just sat on me. And I was just freezing cold, and I tried to go to the restroom, and I came back and I was so cold my teeth were chattering. I couldn't control it. I was shivering and I was so cold, and my husband called the nurse and was like, I don't know what's going on. She just all of a sudden became very cold. They kept taking my temperature. I mean, they must have wand my forehead like 50 times. And I didn't have a temperature. My temperature was normal, but I was freezing. I felt like somebody just stripped me in the middle of winter in Alaska. And there was nothing that I could do to get warm. And they were bringing blankets out of the dryer to lay on top of me. And I'm just like, every part of me that wasn't under the blanket that was exposed was causing me to be cold all over again. So it was like literally, if I wasn't completely covered from head to toe, I was cold. And I was like, okay, at this point, I just want to get back in the bed because I can't get this shiver off of me. As soon as I get back in the bed, I vomit. And I became very sick, and they came back, they took my temperature again, and they were like, oh, she still doesn't have a temperature. And then I'm sitting there after I vomited. I'm like, oh, I feel better. So I'm like, oh, maybe it was the lunch. Maybe that's the problem, And I felt good. And then the nurse comes back for her rounds and takes my temperature, and I have a fever. They're like, your fever is 100.4. You got a fever. And I'm like, what? What is going on here? And they're like, baby's in distress. And I'm like, what? It was like baby's heart rate has dropped significantly. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what is happening? So from that point on, I'm looking at the doctor. The doctor's looking at me. She knows that we have been praying for a natural birth, and she's trying her best to like give me the time and the space to kind of take it in that she already knows what she's about to do. She goes, Miss Doggett, with all of what's going on, baby seems to be in distress. His heart rate has dropped significantly. I'm going to give you about 30 minutes to see if we can get everything stable. And if not, then we're going to have to go ahead and, take you in for a C-section. With Josiah, when the doctor had that conversation with me, I broke down into tears. I was just like, I don't know how to recover from a C-section. I only have had, natural birth. What is going on, Lord? What have I done? And, so that's how I was with Josiah. With Jeremiah, I literally, for probably about maybe a few seconds, was like, Lord, what in the world is happening? What have I done? Like, why didn't you come through? Because I knew she was and give me 30 minutes, but that was only for me to get myself together to to have a C-section, because they were bringing in all of the stuff for Titus to dress out. And so I knew they were trying to do it discreetly, but I knew that they were already prepared to give me a C-section. So I'm like, Lord, come on. Like, what's happening? And it was almost like God just kind of set me up on his knee and was like, do you trust me? And I was like, of course I trust you, Lord. And all of the worry, all of the anxiety about, what it was going to be like to recover from a C-section, all that went out of the window, because I was literally faced with I trust the Lord. And then my mom, she came over and she said, you're one of the, you're one of the strongest people I know, or something to that effect. It was like, you got a high pain tolerance, you got this. And it just really felt really good to have my mom, my husband, and my daughter in the room there, letting me know that, we're rooting for you. We know you got this. It's okay. What we're praying, whatever the Lord's will is in this moment, we're here. And they were there to support me. So I couldn't have had a better team around me of support than those three at that particular time. And so I thank the Lord for setting it up, because this is also an experience that I got to share with my daughter, and how even her mom at this age, at 40 plus, how she handles the unexpected. And she got to see that firsthand. She was there sleeping in the chair with her daddy the whole time I was there. And so I'm glad I was able to share this experience with her as well. And so we get to the C-section. This was the worst experience ever, with them numbing me from my feet all the way up to here. The feeling was absolutely just, I can't even explain how it felt. But I just asked the Lord. I had to pray and ask the Lord to help me fall asleep, because I felt so helpless. And it was such a weird feeling. It was becoming overwhelming for me, laying on that table, not being able to feel my legs, but it was like I felt my lower extremities, but it's kind of like when you sit on your foot or your leg too long and it falls asleep, you have these little pins and needles. Well, until it was like fully numb, that's what it felt like. All these pins and needles from the tips of my toes all the way up. And I was just like, this is so crazy. I don't want to feel this. And I asked the Lord to help me sleep. They thought I was tired. So I was in and out of consciousness throughout the process. And I woke up right before they were actually pulling and exposing Jeremiah's head. And, I heard the doctor say, exposing baby's head, pulling out baby's head, and she pulled the rest of his body out. And it took a little bit of time for me to hear a cry, but eventually we did hear a cry, and my husband was, sitting next to me. And then I hear the doctor say, "Dad, can you come and look at this?" Because he's behind the partition with me. And he comes, and I see his face go, "Can you remove it?" And I'm looking like, remove what? Like, what is happening here? And all I hear is the doctor say, "I'll take care of it. I'll take care of her." And my husband goes, "Thank you." And I'm like, what in the world is happening? And so as I'm still in and out of consciousness, finally they bring baby over to my husband, and I get to see him, and I'm looking at his little face, and I'm going back to sleep, just in and out. And finally in recovery, my husband comes in, and they let him in, and he says, "There was a mass on your right ovary the size of my hand and the width of my hand." And I was like, what? And he was like, "It was huge. And it was a fibroid that had attached itself to the placenta causing my placenta to calcify. And I learned all of this after, because the doctor sent this into the lab for testing to kind of find out what everything was. And so it caused my placenta to calcify, and it was drawing nutrients from it and growing bigger. And thank the Lord, with that plus the hypertension, the placenta didn't just detach itself, or that huge of a mass didn't just burst and erupt. With a baby being in there moving and kicking, all of these things could have happened. With the size of that and the fact that my placenta had calcified from it drawing the nutrients from it, having a natural birth, from all the research that I've done, probably would have ended up with myself and baby being lost. And that was crazy to me after I started doing research about what exactly was going on. And the reason why I wanted to share this is because we were praying for healthy baby, healthy mom. Yes, we were praying for it to be through a natural birth, but God knew better. God knew better. He knew that a natural birth would not answer the prayer for healthy mom and healthy baby. And so sometimes we are praying in our finite understanding for things, for God to do things in a certain way. And he's saying, I want to give you what you want. I just can't give it to you the way that you're asking for it. Because what you don't know is the way that you're asking for it is actually going to harm you, not hurt you. In my mind, having a C-section was secondary. It was the lesser, not necessarily lesser, but it wasn't the perfect will of God. It wasn't the perfect way. That's not the way that God had ordained for women to have children. He ordained us to have children naturally. That's why it's called natural birth. To be cut open is not natural in the sense of how things work properly. That's intervention. But sometimes he needs the intervention because he needs to kill two birds with one stone. He needs to do something more than just answer your prayer. And so I thank the Lord for his goodness, his grace towards me. And guys, please, I'm a mom of having a C-section, so I'm not saying that a woman who has a C-section is some way lesser than a woman who's had a natural birth. I've had both. They're both hard. They're both, the recovery time is still needful, all of that good stuff. It's different. And it's nothing wrong with having to have either one of them. It was just in my perception, I wanted to be natural. I wanted to be able to have a natural birth. And I thank the Lord for his divine intervention in answering my prayer in spite of my prayer. And that is something to be said, because sometimes he has to answer our prayers in spite of our prayers. And I thank him that he is all powerful, all knowing. He has infinite wisdom to be able to do even that. He's not some genie in a bottle that can only grant us what we ask for, but he is a living God that can work through situations and circumstances in the way that they need to be worked through to get to the answered prayer. And so I thank God for his grace. I thank him for his goodness, the mercy that he has shown towards me and my family, in that my children have given me different gifts. Jeremiah gave me the gift of life, because had I not been pregnant with him, I would not have known that there was this mass growing inside of me, on my ovary. And because I literally had no symptoms. None. They were running down the list. Do you have this? Do you have this? I was like, I don't have any of that. I don't have any of that. There was no possible way. No one saw it. It was so big. They thought it was a part of the placenta. That's how large it was, that it wasn't even showing up as something that was outside of what was going on in my stomach anyway. They literally thought it was lakes. They kept saying, "Oh, you got some lakes, in the placenta, but that's normal." In actuality, it wasn't lakes at all. It was the mass. So I thank the Lord for his goodness, and I want, through this testimony, you to be encouraged that sometimes it may seem like the Lord is giving you the opposite of what you asked for. Continue to trust him. Continue to put your faith in him. Continue to believe in him, knowing that he knows all, he sees all, and he understands, and he wants to give you every good thing for you. The Bible tells us that he will not withhold any good thing from his children. And so hold on to that promise that he won't withhold any good thing from you. So if he doesn't give it to you, it's because it's not good for you. You have to believe that with every fiber of your being, or you will go into this depression about what God didn't give to you, when in all actuality, he was giving you exactly what you asked for. It just couldn't be the way that you asked for it to be done. I thank the Lord for my support system, my husband, my mom, my daughter. They were such troopers. My sister-in-law, she drove an hour and something down when she found out I was going to have to get a C-section. She was in her car like, I'm not going to let my sister go through this. She didn't even have to come, but she did. I appreciate her. I'm so thankful for my best friend calling and checking while her son is recovering from back surgery. She's checking on me, making sure I'm okay, staying in contact with my daughter and making sure everything was A-okay. People don't have to support you, especially during times like that. And so I just appreciate the people in my life that come through when it matters. It's so hard to have to find people that come through when it matters. Everybody doesn't have that. I know I'm blessed beyond measure to have so many people who will come through when it matters, and I bless the Lord for that as well. This is not going to be long. Some of the podcasts are long. I just want you guys to be absolutely encouraged that the Lord hears you. He loves you. And in the midst of whatever situation that you may be going through that seems like it's taking a left turn, just trust the Lord. He knows the shortcut. He knows the cheat codes. He know the back way. That's all. That is all I can say, is he knows what you need, when you need it, and how you need it. And so, during that time, I was encouraged. the Lord, took me to another level of faith after that, another level of trust in Him for my life. We say, "Oh Lord, I trust you with my life. I trust you with everything that I have." Some people, I'm assuming, are like me and say that. I definitely say that. And so when we say that, and then He comes through, it just puts a even greater level of trust that we have in Him. It builds the faith even the more in God being God in our lives. It makes me want to serve Him more. It makes me want to love on Him more. It makes me want to do my part towards Him and His people the more. And so I just thank the Lord for His grace and mercy. I've said that several times now, but I thank Him for His grace and mercy, because it could have been another way, but He saw fit to allow me to be here before you with the Just Rashatta podcast, sharing this testimony, sharing this encouragement, even in the midst of raising my 4 children, having this beautiful baby boy who is a ball of sunshine. Literally, if sunshine was a person, it's Jeremiah's. And I thank the Lord for him. I thank the Lord for my doctor, whose name is Dr. Mercy. And she is just amazing. The skill and the meticulous way she handles me, even after, the hospital, and, just as my OB, she's so meticulous, she's so gentle, she's so caring about me as a patient. It's amazing. And even the nurses talked about how much time and effort she put into sewing me back up, and putting everything back together. She took her time. I asked how long it would take. They said to get the baby and everything out, that should take about 25-30 minutes, and then closing me back up would be an hour. This lady took 2 hours closing each level with such care and meticulous. Like, there's no scar. You can't even see a scar. It's like nothing happened. I could only feel it because I couldn't see it. It looked amazing. And so and she even told me when I woke up, she was like, "I gave you a little lipo." So I was like, "Come on and use your gifts, Dr. Mercy. Use them for the glory." But but I thank the Lord. He's amazing, and He knows what you need when you need it. And I want to encourage you to always remember that. If He did it for me, He's no respecter person. I know we say it all the time, but it's the absolute truth. He'll do it for you. That's all that I have. I thank you all for coming on this journey with me, with Just Rashatta Podcast, and I hope you get something from it. I hope you are blessed by it as I share my life experiences, as I bring on other people to share their life experiences, who are just living their lives to please the Lord in a way that is just focused, laser focused in to live according to His word, and really striving to do that no matter what we face, no matter what we go through. Just trying the Bible for what it says, trying Jesus for all that He is, and living this thing out just the way it's written, not trying to figure out how to live this word and also live with our foot out in the world, just jumping full 10 toes into this word, and not looking back and what that looks like. And there are people that are doing it. There are people that are, enjoying their life because of it, living a life that is pleasing unto the Lord according to his word. It's an amazing feeling, and I thank the Lord that I get to experience it, and I want you all to experience it too. You're not losing anything by just focusing in on the word of God and trying to apply it as best as you can to your life as in a practical way. So yes, I thank my church family at Rivers of Living Water Church. They threw me a whole steak barbecue when I got home from the hospital. Everybody was checking in. I praise the Lord for them too. They were amazing, and they went above and beyond to make sure that they showed their love, care, and concern for me. So I thank the Lord for my village as well, because it definitely takes a village, not just to raise a child, but to keep all the adults sane as well. But yeah, that's all I have. I pray that you all are blessed, and until next time, peace and God bless.
Did you know that you are a hero? You are a hero. Did you know that your life is a guiding light, helping many precious souls to